Welcome back to the Born Bred Podcast. This is episode 7 of season 2, and we are your hosts, Brendan Gallagher
and Maria Lynn. This episode is sponsored by the Robinson Grand Performing Arts Center. Be sure to visit therobinsongrand.com for our upcoming events, concerts, and opportunities for some great entertainment and a great time. The Robinson Grand has been an outstanding partner of Born and Bred, and we are so grateful. You should join all of us November 16th, this coming weekend, for the Born and Bred concert series at the Robinson Grand. We are so grateful to everyone at the Robinson Grand and for all of you for joining us.
I can feel your lies, they're coming around. The further I get from you, the closer I get.
All right, so what was that happening November 16th at the Born and Bred, the Robinson Grand? Where was it? What's happening?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, this is awkward.
The Born and Bred concert series is happening.
Who's playing?
The Moon, My Twin.
What?
We don't talk about that much.
No, we never heard of them.
And Kindred Valley and Alabaster Boxer.
That's awesome. I'm really excited about all of those bands. I'm very, very excited about Alabaster Boxer and Kindred Valley because I have not seen Kindred Valley live yet.
Same, likewise.
Yeah, and we've seen Alabaster a couple times, and we've seen the Moon My Twin every chance we get. Or if we are bringing them in for a show, we love them. So we're very excited about this show. It's going to be a great time. You can get your tickets by going to therobinsongrand.com. Check that out. Come hang out with us that night. There's also like a mini market happening before the concert. It starts at 4:30. You'll be able to get into the lobby of the Robinson Grand and check out the awesome vendors that will be there.
You can start your Christmas shopping.
Yeah, absolutely. Really cool vendors. So come out to the Robinson Grand on Saturday, November the 16th, and check out all the amazing things happening in the West Virginia music scene. So we have a special guest on our show today.
We do indeed.
I just want to talk about him for a second because I consider this guy a friend. He actually filled in for my band and went all the way to Phoenix, Arizona with us to play a show last Christmas, actually.
He gave you his heart.
He did.
That's
he actually
so
gave me
nice.
his arms and feet. And I was greatly appreciative because he is a fantastic guy, fantastic musician, amazing artist. This is a guy named Edward McMillan. We call him Ed Mac. And he is the human embodiment of a Muppet, and I mean that in the best way. He's like the coolest, just guy to be around and talk to.
He actually had a Muppet made of himself.
Yeah, he had a Muppet made of himself because he is so Muppet-like. And yeah, if you don't know him, he's actually also a tattoo artist at Pike Street in Clarksburg, and he's just one of the best. I mean, he's an amazing artist,
Future
amazing
sponsor
musician.
of this podcast.
Yeah. Maybe. So we just wanted to get a chance to talk to him. He's in a band called Fat Timmy, which is a ska band, and every once in a while, I'm not a massive ska fan. But every once in a while,
it's fun. It's a good time.
I just get a ska bug.
Yeah, it's a good time.
And I'm just going to listen to everything. And this is a great band to check out. Welcome into the Born and Bred Podcast, our friend, Ed Mac.
And welcome into the Born and Bred Podcast, Ed Mac. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so I want to talk today about you are somebody who I consider to be an artist in the truest sense of the word. Art permeates your entire life, it seems. So you are a musician, which is why you're here, but you're also a tattoo artist and a painter. Do you have any, I feel like once you told me that you cook as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which there's an artistry to cooking.
Yeah.
So do you have any other hidden talents that we don't know about?
I mean, I can juggle.
Can you?
Yeah.
I mean, that's certainly an artistry, I think.
I'm working on riding a unicycle.
Are you really?
Yeah, that's the one thing that I've always wanted to do that I haven't been able to not master, but at least, be able to do.
So what's how do you even start? Without breaking your head, how do you even start learning that?
Of course I watched a bunch of YouTube videos, but a lot of them say start in a hallway. So that you can kind of have
grab
one
the
hand.
walls.
Yeah, exactly. And then you just have to kind of go for it. There's no let me kind of feel it out. And,
yeah, right.
It's just do or die,
Oh my gosh. What do your kids think of that?
They haven't really seen me do it. I don't want to do it around them because I don't want it to
So here's the real question. Are you going to get to the point where you can unicycle and juggle at the same time?
Absolutely.
That's the goal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I used to work in a surf shop for years, and we had like one of those. It was called an Indo board. It was like a balance board that you would like, practice your balance for surfing and skating and stuff. And I could do that and juggle at the same time. So
so you're halfway there. You're more than halfway.
You'll
there.
see me, pretty soon here riding up and down the street.
Yeah, Ed and I are neighbors, so I guess I'll be on the lookout to see you unicycling. You're on a little bit of a hill, though, so
it's true.
Would be scary if you just go right out of your house.
Definitely.
Oh my gosh, and winter's coming, so we'll have ice as a factor.
Yeah.
So you better learn fast. So what I think is interesting about you, what is interesting about you, and what I like chatting with people about is when people find a way of making art their full-time career. Like a lot of people are having to do a job that they hate while they're doing music or whatever on the side.
Sure.
But you have a career as a tattoo artist while you're doing music and painting on the side. So talk a little bit about that, how you got into that in terms of like, what were you doing before you were a tattoo artist? Because it's kind of recent, right?
Yeah, well, it's been about 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what were you doing before, and how and when did you make that shift into like just making everything you do monetarily as art?
I was always doing art, obviously, since I was a kid, liked it and stuff. Outside of high school, I took like one college class, and it taught me a lot, but I didn't pursue college any further because I'm just not that type of person.
Which is admirable, I think. Like the fact that you could be like, you know what, this isn't for me. And
I realized I was wasting time and money because school settings is not. I get anxiety in that sort of setting. So
sure, I think a lot of people can relate to that.
So I just kind of kept drawing and painting, and I remember the first painting I sold, because I was working odd jobs. I've had countless jobs. I was going to be late on my rent, or I didn't have enough for rent. So I was like $100 short. Mm-hmm. And we had a few friends over one night, and I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, I don't want to borrow money. Like, I'm not that type of person. Like, I'll find it somewhere. And that night, my friend, I think it was Mike Mays, he saw this painting and that was hanging in my house that I just did for fun. And he's like, dude, I really like that.
Nice.
He's like, can I buy it? And I was like, I guess. He's like, I'll give you $100 for it.
Perfect.
And I was like, sold. And that was like the kind of like kickoff to like, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe people see some kind of value in my art.
Right.
And that's the hard thing about being a painter is like, self-worth is one thing, but like monetarily, you're only worth what someone's willing to pay for the painting. So it might take you a while to kind of build up to whatever kind of value you're wanting from your art, regardless of your talent.
Right.
So I just kept painting and, holding retail jobs, and eventually like I was in retail management and kind of made a career out of that for about 5 years, and then just kind of got sick of that. I was like, I really want to focus like more on art. So I started bussing tables actually at the Hard Rock Cafe in Orlando, which was great because I could just show up, clean up other people's garbage, not really have to think too much, bust my butt, make a good bit of money, and then...
Because everybody's on vacation, right?
Oh,
so
yeah. Like, it was crazy.
Is it in Universal? Or like right outside Universal?
It's right.
Yeah.
It's in City Walk there.
Yeah.
So I was able to make good money, and then free time, just work on art. And then I started doing portraits kind of accidentally. I was doing an art event, and I had an extra canvas, and there's this jazz band playing. And I look at the singer, and he's got this real cool look. He's got like kind of the golfer hat on. He's got that old school mic, and I'm like, man, this guy's got like style and something about him. So I had paint and a canvas, so I just painted him like as he was playing.
That's so great.
And his manager wound up coming up, and he's like, is that Anthony? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, dude, that's awesome. He's like, I want to hang it in our studio.
Nice.
And he's like, how much do you want for it? And I threw out a price, and he's like, sold. So I was like,
oh
okay.
My gosh, that's great.
Here's another like kind of stepping stone.
Yeah.
So then I started kind of painting more like music artists, like Jimi Hendrix, Bob Dylan. I've sold a ton of Bob Marley paintings. It was just one of those things that like I was like, okay, there's a market for this that I can make extra money.
Yeah.
I wasn't at the point to where I could just go all in. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, I'm seeing what's selling. So I just started doing that more. Mm-hmm. Because you could paint what you want to paint for yourself all day. It doesn't mean somebody's going to like it.
Right.
So having that knowledge of like, or a self-awareness that like, okay, I really do want to do art and be able to provide for myself and, you know, eventually my family, I have to paint what I think is going to sell.
Yeah.
So I started doing that more, and then eventually moved up to West Virginia and was holding a job just as bartender, server.
What brought you to West Virginia?
I met a girl down in Orlando. We worked together, and she was from here.
Okay.
And then we eventually, one thing, you know, a couple series of events happened. We moved up here into her parents' farmhouse, and then, which was a very different cultural shift.
Yeah, I bet.
But it was
from Orlando.
It was good because it kind of forced me to kind of slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
And like really kind of
Which is good
reflect.
Yeah.
You know. And so eventually, I was selling honestly a lot of paintings, and I held my first like solo art show, and that was kind of a big deal.
That's awesome.
And I worked real hard to get a big like catalog of paintings, and I held it downtown Clarksburg at the old Kelly's that was there. It was a great turnout. I sold like, I think 14 paintings.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was.
That's really incredible.
And that was
Good
like,
for you.
okay, like maybe I could do this.
Yeah.
You know, but still I was hesitant because it's a big leap to just go like, okay,
It's a huge leap, yeah.
I'm not going to have a steady paycheck. I'm not,
Right.
you know, plus you don't have anybody telling you, you have to be at work at this day.
Right,
You
right.
have to just
You
clock
could
in
just
for
be
these
like, I'm gonna
hours.
sleep in today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, which is something that I see from time to time in the tattoo world is like, you have an owner, you have, you know, quote, a boss, but you're basically self-employed. So if you're not a good boss of yourself,
Right.
you're not going to, you know, be as successful. So leading into the tattooing, it happened, when COVID hit and everybody went into quarantine, it gave me a real good time to like reflect and kind of reevaluate. And I was making money because, you know, I was waiting tables before that, but however it worked through the government and whatever I was getting in compensation from being quarantined was way more than what I was making at the restaurant.
That was some interesting math back then.
So I was able to like save up just a little chunk of money to get me by for a few months. So I was like, okay, I can use that and just go all in on the art.
Great.
So I started doing some research, reading up on like, I had a good kind of mindset of business from working retail. So I was like, okay, how do I push this further for myself? So I just looked at, you know, business models, what it takes to run a successful business, and just kind of put that on myself. Mm-hmm. So I had this plan, I had notebooks, I'm just like taking notes. I'm like, this is it, I'm going to do it. And so I went right after quarantine. I had a tattoo appointment that was rescheduled for after quarantine. So it was like a week after.
This is for yourself? Like
Correct.
You were getting a tattoo?
I was getting a tattoo. And I was super pumped. I was like, you know, I had this new mindset of like, all right, here we go. Like, this is it. I'm going all in. I'm not going to go back to waiting tables, which was good money. But I knew that if I kept doing that, I wasn't going to make that leap, and I wasn't going to be able to do art full time. So I'm in the tattoo chair. I'm telling Josh, my tattoo artist, all about this. I'm like, this is it, man. It's life-changing. I can feel it. Like, something's going to happen. You know, I was pumped, and he's like, I'm so happy for you, man. And we're just going back and forth. And then the owner of the shop walks in, and he looks at my tattoo. He's like, oh, that's really cool. Josh is like, oh, Ed designed it. I was like, oh, that's awesome. He's like, yeah, I did a lot of the murals downtown Clarksburg. He's an artist. And he's like, let me see your work. So I pulled out my phone, and I'm like kind of scrolling through. He's like, man, I really like your stuff. And I'll never forget, he said those magic words. He's like, have you ever thought about tattooing? And I said, absolutely. And he's like, okay, well, why don't you come in for a meeting?
Nice.
So a few days later, I went in and let me go back. So I walked out of the tattoo shop just very, very excited, obviously, but not too excited. I don't want to
Sure.
jinx myself or anything.
Right.
So I went home and I told my wife, I'm like, I think this might be something. Like, I'm not gonna get too excited. And she's like, okay, all right. So, at home, I pull out my portfolio, I get all my work together, everything tattoo related, non-tattoo related. I even brought a resume. I had a list of potential clients. I'm like, these are people
awesome.
that I work with, that I know, that I've done paintings for over the years, that have tattoos, that I know I can bring business into the shop.
Yeah, right.
So it's basically selling myself, to Rocco, the owner of the shop. And so I went in and we immediately just hit it off and sat around for about 2.5 hours, I think. And just, it was like I just belonged there.
Yeah.
So I told him, I'm like, I'm not gonna waste your time.
Yeah.
So, and I know you're not gonna, to waste mine. So I'm gonna hustle. I'm gonna really work. So that's exactly what I did. I went in and they said that I was the first apprentice they had ever seen taking notes along the way, because I had a notebook. I was just everything. I'm writing it down because I don't remember stuff that well. You can tell me something, but if I'm not physically doing it,
Yeah.
I might not remember.
I'm the
So.
same way.
So yeah, just notes and notes and notes and questions and all this stuff. I'm just like, give me everything. And having that little, I don't really call it a nest egg, but that little, money saved up to kind of float me by was perfect, because you don't get paid as an apprentice. And, it kind of happened when it needed to, because I have a family, I have kids, I have responsibilities. So, I didn't have the luxury of just going in and hanging out and yeah, maybe I'll, learn this, or maybe I'll, do this or that. It's no, I was in there okay, why are you doing that? What's this?
Yeah.
So kind of, tried to streamline my tattoo apprenticeship. So within, a short amount of time, I was able to start tattooing.
So they trained you right in the shop.
Yeah.
You don't have to go to school somewhere for that.
No, they have tattoo schools, but they're kind of bogus.
Gotcha.
They're not really.
So what was it like when you I don't know, that first moment you went from canvas or paper to flesh?
Oh, it was terrifying.
Was it? Yeah, I
tried to play it cool, but
yeah.
I was very nervous and shaky, and the first person, this is usually how it works. I mean, every shop is different, but the first person you tattoo is yourself.
Okay.
So
that was my next question, if you've tattooed yourself. Okay.
So I wasn't sure what to do. I knew it was coming up, so I literally just tattooed a number 1 on the top of my thigh. But right as I'm about to touch needle to skin, it was Josh, Rocco, and somebody else in the room watching me, obviously hovering over me.
No pressure.
Yeah. I'm about to touch needle to skin, and they all do the Ric Flair woo. Woo! Obviously, I jump, and I just look up, and they're cracking up, and I'm like, oh, man. So, I mean, the tattoo shop is very, it's lighthearted, but it is a serious thing that we do.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But, so I did that, and it's still there, still looks good. But I was more nervous the first time I had to tattoo another person.
Yeah.
And that was...
Did that person know that they were your first?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, most definitely. It was my friend Abby, and she was very willing, and I still thank her every time I see her. I'm like, you were my first tattoo.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people would do that, I think.
And I'm like, it should have been better. This. She says she loves it. She's super happy with it. But, obviously I look at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's terrible. And it's really not that bad.
Yeah,
but I'm just very
You just know it was your first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So little by little, confidence is huge in tattooing.
Yeah. Oh, I would think.
So little by little, you kind of gain more confidence, and you start off with tattooing friends and family, and they know what they're in for. But you don't know the ropes yet.
So then, talk about music. When did you start playing music? What instrument did you start with? And tell us about your band, Fat Timmy.
Okay. I think the first instrument I got was we always had a piano around. My sister took piano lessons. and she would, sit there with the teacher for an hour or whatever. And I'd just kind of like walk back and forth and like watch what they were doing. And then the teacher would leave, my sister would do something else, and then I would try to like emulate what they were doing.
Yeah.
Which worked pretty well. My sister would get mad because she was like a music reader, where I had more of a natural ear.
Right.
So and to this day, piano is probably my favorite instrument to play. But I never really kind of pursued it. It was just something to like sit at and
that's so interesting because I know you as a drummer, but I saw you pick up guitar recently, and I was like, surely there's more. I was like, he cooks, he does tattooing and painting. Like he's got more instruments in his arsenal. Of tricks.
I do. I learning to play the accordion too, but
that sounds right.
Yeah. So the first
on the unicycle. That's
right.
The
Yeah.
goal.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
I could
a
see that.
Showstopper.
But I got my first. I wanted to play the drums. Honestly, as a kid, I wanted to be like up front and like. I didn't necessarily like want to play guitar, but I want to like hold the guitar. Like the rock star image seemed so cool to me. So I'm like, I want to do that.
And you're a singer as well.
Yeah. I sing as well. But I don't remember how it came about, but I do. So 6th grade, school band. I was like, okay, I want to play in the school band. And you try out all the instruments, and then they kind of put you where they think, you're not going to suck the most at. And for me, that was percussion. Because I could make noise on like trumpets and stuff, but it wasn't good at all. So I'm like, sweet, I'm going to play drums. And they give me a xylophone, like first day of class. I'm like, what is this? And they're like, oh, you're in percussion. I'm like, I want to play the drums.
Yeah.
Like, that's percussion. I'm like, this is the bells. Like, this isn't cool.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to get chicks like playing the bells, So I stuck with that for a little bit, and then moved to like timpani drums, and then like eventually the snare and stuff. So I was like, okay, I do like this. So got my first real drum set when I was 12. And my dad, it was Christmas morning. I walk out, the drum set's there. I was super pumped. And I go to sit behind it. My dad stops me. And he's like, hold on. And he goes to his cassette tape collection. And he's like, it was all in alphabetical order. And he's like scrolling down. And he gets to the eyes. And he pulls out a tape. And he's like, you have to learn this first. And he hands me a tape of Iron Butterfly, Inagata Davida. And he hands me the headphones, these big, bulky headphones from like the 70s. Yeah. And so I would sit there like day in, day out, like listening to Inagata Davida. And like, not only like just the regular part, but there's like a 12-minute drum solo in that song. Yeah. So I didn't get it perfect, but like, I got it pretty close. And
at 12 years old?
Yeah.
Good for you.
And it was one of those things that like, drums like kind of came easier than other things. So I'm like, okay, because I was lazy. So I'm like, I'll stick with this. Yeah. My dad had a guitar. He had a bass. He played the banjo. Mom played the banjo. So we came from, kind of
you
a musical.
You were surrounded by music.
Yeah. And so I started learning a little guitar. My sister was dating somebody that played guitar really well. And he would show me some stuff. And then he showed me like power chords. Game over. Yeah. I was like, because at the time, like my favorite band was Green Day, like right after they released Dookie. Yeah. And I was just like, I could play any of these songs now. So I kind of did that. Like I play guitar, but I would not call myself a guitar player. Sure. I'm not that proficient at it. Right. I can sit around a campfire and hang, but so drums, and I just, with very little, practice, I just kind of got better with like, I remember, 16, 17, this dude's like, you play drums, right? I like barely knew him from school, and I was like, yeah, I play drums. He's like, you have a drum set? I was like, yeah. He's like, you want to be in my band? I was like, okay.
Nice.
And that was like the start, and then it just kept going. Yeah. Like I remember the first time I practiced, quote unquote practice, it was terrible, but we like had a sleepover. And we're sitting at Charles's house, and we could all like barely play our instruments, but we're still making music. And like that feeling of sitting in a room with like 3 other dudes, you know, or girls, whatever, and like making music and having like this common like brain and this, you know, chemistry.
Yeah.
And like working towards something and building it from scratch, and like eventually you just create something out of nothing.
Yeah.
Together. It was the coolest feeling, and I'm like, I want to do this more.
That's awesome.
So I got better, the bands got better, you know, musicianship got better, and we did like, you know, different bands. I did like Battle of the Bands. Like, I think that was like the first like show I ever did.
Yeah.
I was so scared. So scared. Trying to play it cool. My girlfriend's in the audience, you know. I'm like, here it is. Like, you know, because at that point you feel like you've made it.
It's the biggest moment of your life. Yeah.
You're playing to other people. Everyone is watching you.
Yeah.
Like looking at you, okay, let's see what you got.
Yeah.
So I go out there, I'm sweating, I'm like shaky, I'm nervous. And by like 20, 30 seconds into the first song, it just clicked. And I was like, okay,
Nice.
you got this. And it was like, I all that nervousness or whatever, like I let all that energy into that was in the room, just like fill me up. And it was like, boom, like it made me like play better, and just like, I just wanted to perform.
Yeah.
So show was over. I'm super pumped. I'm like, yeah, that was awesome. I go out to my girlfriend. I'm like, what do you think?
Yeah.
And she's like, you guys kind of suck.
No.
And I was so heartbroken.
Yeah.
I was like, the one person that I wanted to like the music was just like, nah, I'm not digging it.
Oh, man.
But we have a video of it, and the band was Poster Regiment was the name of the band. Looking back at the video, we did suck. Like, we were pretty bad.
Aw.
So at
That's
least
okay.
at least she was honest.
Still impactful in your life and your career as a musician.
So was in that band, and then I mean, so many bands. But from there, we went and did this band called Sarsaparilla, which was a super fun
That's
band.
a great name.
Yeah, it was neat. We didn't like fit into any kind of genre. We were just like, let's play whatever we want to play.
Yeah.
Some people got it, some people didn't, because we're playing with like a bunch of punk bands, and we're like, we're more punk than you guys are. 'Cause we're not fitting into the punk thing. You say you're punk, but you're just playing the same crap that everybody else is. I mean, I like punk music, but so that we started playing shows with like other bands, and you could tell that like the caliber of musicianship was just getting better at like 18 years old, you know.
Awesome.
So that led to us playing bands with the ska band called Fat Timmy. The first time I saw them, I was like, man, these guys are like really good. They were just kind of next level.
Yeah.
Like, I was faking it till I was making it, and these guys were like on point. And I was like, damn. So we played a few shows with them. And then their drummer left. They got another drummer who was a friend of mine. And then our bass player left. And then their bass player played in our band. So we're all kind of interweaving. And then eventually I started playing drums for Fat Timmy. And then we kind of had a good run at that and started writing new music and stuff. And Fat Timmy put out an album in '97 called Enter the Kabuki. And for like kids in high school, like it still holds up.
That's awesome.
So from the get-go, like hearing these guys, I was like, I definitely want to be a part of this, because they were just different.
Yeah.
So I joined the band, and we had a blast. We played a bunch of shows. We started writing music. We got out to the studio. There's one point where we were going to be like the house band on like a cruise ship. Like we had that opportunity.
Yeah.
And not everybody could do it for one reason or another. So I don't have like any regrets, but that's something that like I wish would have kind of happened, because it would have been so neat.
Yeah.
So we did that for a while, and we were actually, I just this weekend got back from a trip down to Florida playing with those guys. We were reminiscing about the early shows and all the bands and stuff. And it's kind of hard timeline wise to put like what happened when or whatever. Right. But we had a good run, and then some of the guys went, joined the Supervillains. I started another band with Nick Utter one of the guitar players from Fat Timmy. It was more of a rock thing, kind of like an Incubus vibe. Did that for a while, and we all kind of went our separate ways and had families and careers and all this stuff. And then probably 4 or 5 years ago, I was talking to the guys. I'm like, we should just get together and just like set up a little like mobile studio.
Yeah.
And just see what happens. So we rented a Airbnb in Rome, Georgia, and I flew down, a couple people flew up, a couple people drove, and we set up all the recording stuff. And we didn't really have anything planned. It was just like, let's just see what comes out.
That's great.
And we wound up writing like 3 or 4 songs that weekend. But that just was like the kickoff of like, okay,
awesome.
There's something here still.
Yeah.
This is super fun. Let's just keep going.
Yeah.
So we did. And it's great because we all have the luxury of having some free time. We have families, we have, careers, and we're doing it just because we like to do it.
Yeah.
There's no underlying, like, I hope we make it.
Right.
I hope we're,
You just love it.
Maybe someday we're going to, tour and
Yeah.
all those things obviously would be cool
Sure.
and neat, but like, it's not about that. Like, we realized, like, no, we just like hanging out, writing music,
Yeah, that's the best.
playing music, doing shows. It's just so fun.
So how often do you play together right now? This
I go
phase?
down about 2 times a year,
Okay.
but they play a gig about every other month.
Oh, good.
So
Great.
everything from like the gig this weekend was like a 3-hour set at a brewing company. So
In Florida?
40 songs on the on the set there.
Wow.
So I'm a little tired today.
Yeah.
But it was good.
Oh my
Super
gosh,
fun.
that's great. That's
We
cool.
got to play a big show recently with the Toasters, which is one of our favorite ska bands. I mean, they've been playing since like the late 70s. So they're out of New York City. And we went to their show when we were in high school and got to meet the band and talk to them, and then come full circle, 25, 30 years later, we get to play a show with them and share the stage. And
That's
that
awesome.
was like a pivotal moment for sure.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I think like your whole story is inspiring. I think there's a lot of musicians out there who, their mindset is if they don't make it, almost like why do it at all? Or there's like this tension of like, I want to make it. But I feel like you just really enjoy whatever phase you're at. Like you just enjoy the art and the music for its own sake.
Definitely.
Wherever that brings you and takes you.
I think the more, there's so many different facets to art and so many different levels. And for me, like the more serious you take it, or the more you sacrifice yourself or your artistic like vision, because you do have to sacrifice that if you want to make money.
Yeah.
There's just no way
Sure.
around it. There's very, very few artists or musicians that are making money doing exactly what they want to do.
And I think that's a really important point because there are a lot of people who, like, that's their biggest complaint is that they just want to make the art that they want to make and they want to make top dollar for it and they want to be appreciated for it and all these things. And I think it's really important to remember, like, no, in any job and certainly in the art world, like, you're going to have to do some things that aren't your ideal. And that's okay. That doesn't make you a failure. That doesn't
Right.
make you unsuccessful. You have to accept the fact that, like, sometimes you're going to have to do a project that's not as exciting to you, and that's totally okay.
Yeah, you've got to be real about it. And like I said before, like self-aware.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
know what kind of artist I am. I know
Yeah.
what kind of musician I am. Like
Yes.
I'm not the best. Absolutely not. But I enjoy it. I know where I am. I know
Yeah.
what I want to do with it.
Yeah.
And when I was in bands at a younger age, of course there was that was the goal. Like, you got to make it. You got to sign a record deal. You got to go on tour, be on MTV,
Yeah.
And the more serious I got about it, I started reading into the music industry, the less I wanted to do it.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, in my mind, you have made it. Like, you're doing tattoos every day. You're painting. I mean, Ed just did a painting for us. He did a painting of Bill Withers that we'll repost so everybody can see it. We have another project coming up where you're going to do some sketches of West Virginia artists, which we'll reveal more of shortly. But, like, your whole life is art, and then you get to go play these shows with your friends, but you still have a normal family life. Like, to me, that's making it. Like, you get to do art and music full time. You know, if you put it all together full time, right? And
I don't have any free time.
You still have a normal, healthy life. Like, it's great.
Definitely. For sure. I had friends that I hadn't seen in a while this weekend that I got to see. And they asked me, you know, how's everything? You know, because people down in Orlando, they a lot of times think of West Virginia as like living on the side of a mountain.
Sure,
you know, no running water and stuff.
Yeah.
But I got to tell them, I'm like, you know, life is just really, really good right now.
That's awesome.
And it, you know, I always take a positive outlook, but no, you have to soak it in, you know, and the more positive you are, the better it gets.
Absolutely. You know? So how many years have you been in West Virginia now?
13, I think.
Oh, good.
Which it doesn't, saying that seems like a really long time, but it doesn't feel that long.
And have you liked it more since the longer you're here?
The longer I live here, yes, absolutely love it more.
Good.
And I still like Florida, but I appreciate the way of life up here.
Yeah.
It's very easy to live up here.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, I'm like, people from West Virginia are genuine. Mm-hmm. They're either genuinely nice, or they might be genuinely an a-hole, but at least you know they are. At least you know where
you stand with
right.
them. Yeah, 100%.
I don't know that I've met a lot of people that are trying to be something that they're not.
Yeah.
Like, there's not really any, like, fakeness. It's just, you know, which is very refreshing because I find in bigger cities, there's just a lot of that, like, pretentiousness, you know?
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Ed, thank you for coming on. Tell us where people can find you if they want to check out your art, check out you, make an appointment for a tattoo, check out your music. What are all the things?
Our tattoo shop is downtown Bridgeport, right on Main Street, across from the Dairy Queen. It's called Pike Street Studios. We do walk-ins all the time. We also can, you know, make appointments. We do custom work, piercings, all the things. We have 7 artists there. Of course, you know, come see me first.
Yeah, come see me.
As far as music, you know, we're on Spotify, iTunes. You know, we've got a few music videos up on YouTube. It's Fat Timmy is the name of the band. You can go to Fat Timmy Band, I think is the Spotify, or just search Fat Timmy on iTunes. We've got 3 albums up there. We've got 2 more albums in the works.
Great.
One like live album, and then one that we're kind of taking a little bit more time on. So yeah.
That's exciting. Be sure to keep us posted so that we can share that on the
Definitely.
Born and Bred platforms. I mean, you know, we use the term born and bred a little bit loosely, where you don't literally have to be born and bred in West Virginia for us to share your stuff. If you're living here, that counts as bred. Your career can be somewhat bred. So, sometimes I think people are like, well, I wasn't born in West Virginia.
Right.
And I'm like, but you're here now.
Yeah.
So, like, that's okay. So
I had a friend ask, he's like, I think I'm going to retire to West Virginia. He's asking me about housing and all that stuff.
Great.
I threw out some numbers, and he's like, that's it? I'm like, come on up, man. I'm like, you will love it up here.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. And this time of year, too, gosh, it's just so beautiful around here in the fall.
Awesome.
I'm really enjoying it. I've been here for 4 years now, and this time of year I think is the best.
Definitely.
But, well, thank you again, Ed.
Oh, you're welcome.
And thank you all for listening. And check out Ed in all the places he told you. And also look out for a special project we're going to be doing with Ed very soon regarding art and WV musicians. Thanks for listening.
Thanks again to Ed Mac for joining us on our podcast today. Make sure you're checking out everything Born and Bred by going to the Born and Bred webpage, which is, my brain just completely went out of me. It's bornandbredmusic.com.
It is.
You can check out there and you'll be able to see links to everything we do. We have, obviously, this podcast. We have our YouTube channel, and we have all of our social media there for you. And our YouTube has some great content beyond this podcast, such as our Stomping Ground series, which we are going to be releasing another video. Actually, well, we would have, we just released our,
it yesterday.
We did. We released our video yesterday. So that's another one with the excellent Samuel James.
Covering Christian Lopez.
Yes. Oh, that's right. That's so good. Christian Lopez, another amazing artist. So we're excited about that. So thank you so much for checking out our podcast, and we will see you next time.